The forest loomed dark and foreboding around Altan as he ventured deeper into its depths. The canopy above was thick, allowing only slivers of moonlight to penetrate through, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. His keen eyes scanned the surroundings, searching for any signs of the Pikal Peri. The tales he had heard from the villagers played in his mind, each detail heightening his senses. Altan moved silently, his footsteps barely disturbing the fallen leaves beneath his boots. He came across a broken lipstick tube, its crimson hue a stark contrast against the earthy tones of the forest. Nearby, a single man's shoe lay discarded, its surface scuffed and dirty. A few steps further, he found a piece of torn clothing, stained with dried blood. His grip on his sword tightened as he realized he was getting closer. The air grew colder as he advanced, and a foul stench began to permeate the air. A sickly, sweet odor of decaying flesh and fresh blood. Suddenly he stumbled upon a clearing, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Human bones, gnawed and broken, littered the ground, intermingled with the remains of animals. Some of the bones hung from the trees, swaying gently in the breeze, a grotesque wind chime orchestrated by death itself. The sight was horrifying, but Altan's expression remained stoic. It was a cloudy night, and the moon played a game of hide-and-seek behind the clouds, casting an intermittent silvery glow on the scene. He followed the scent, moving carefully through the trees until he came upon a grotesque scene. A young man, barely in his 20s, lay lifeless on the ground, his body mutilated. His eyes were open, frozen in a final expression of terror. Over him crouched a half-naked woman, her mouth smeared with blood as she gnawed on the flesh of the deceased. Altan moved closer, and the woman's head snapped up, her senses alerting her to his presence. She rose to her feet, covering herself with a tattered rug. As she turned to face him, Altan saw a girl of heavenly beauty with big eyes that shone in the moonlight and long silky hair cascading down to her knees. "So it's that way you want it," she hissed. Her body began to transform, her nails elongated into dagger-like claws, her fingers twisting into grotesque shapes, her face contorted, her eyes turning black as night. Her teeth grew sharp and jagged, and her limbs lengthened unnaturally, giving her the appearance of a nightmarish predator. Altan braced himself as the Pikal Peri lunged at him with incredible speed. He parried her attacks, their blades clashing in a deadly dance. She was fast and strong, but Altan's training and experience allowed him to match her moves. The fight raged on, each strike and counterstrike a blur of motion. Altan managed to land a few blows, but they seemed to have little effect on the ghostly witch. Determined not to be defeated, Altan reached into his pouch and pulled out a rune stone. He rubbed it against his silver sword, the blade beginning to shimmer with a yellow light. The runes engraved on the stone glowed brightly, imbuing the sword with a powerful enchantment. The Pikal Peri's laughter faltered as she sensed the change. Her form flickered, and she began to transform into a mist, attempting to escape. Altan knew this was his chance. He held the glowing sword high, ready to deliver the final blow. The enchanted blade cut through the mist, its light piercing the darkness. The Pikal Peri screamed, a sound of pure agony, as the sword's magic tore through her ethereal form. Altan pressed on, each strike weakening her further until she could no longer maintain her shape. In a final, desperate attempt, the Pikal Peri tried to lash out, but Altan was relentless. With a powerful swing, he struck her one last time, and her form disintegrated into a cloud of dark smoke that dissipated into the night. The forest fell silent once more, the only sound the steady breathing of Altan as he stood victorious. The moon emerged from behind the clouds, casting a soft light over the clearing. Altan sheathed his sword, the yellow glow fading, and took a moment to gather himself. He glanced at the remains of the young man, a pang of sorrow piercing his heart. Though he could not save him, he had avenged his death and brought peace to the village. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Altan turned and made his way back to the settlement, the head of the Pikal Peri in his hand. The night had been long and brutal, but he had prevailed. He knew his journey was far from over, but for now he had fulfilled his promise to the villagers and could continue his quest with renewed determination.